When you put the time frame together, most of us, our families came in 1930.
Yeah.
In 1936 we had the strike. In 1941 we had a war. The war changed everything. Things blossomed out here for, among other reasons, the big airport was built. The air base was built. So things began to change. So you're talking about a decade. I remember moving to Alisal in 1940 before the Second World War began. And we lived in this lovely new home. Dad had bought it for $3,200. A different part of Alisal. It's a little further out. A little nicer than this area because this area was Little Oklahoma. These were the folks, when you speak of the 30s, and the 36s, it was right here.
Right.
However, it was in those shantytowns. Shantytown was over on Market Street. The way you describe it, there's no other way to describe it. It was built of whatever you could find. Like anything, you had to build a frame.
The only good thing of today is medicine. It's gone a long way to healing. That is the best thing that ever happened right today. Because those days, the people that were dying off because they had the county hospital. And a lot of people went there. And my mother died out there because there was nothing we could do. But they had nothing but they turned to. But up to date, their medicine has gone a long way. I have to say that.
Let's go back.
Good thing. Very good thing.
Go back to something identifying. Do you have as much trouble as I have coming up with a location?
A location, yes. I could not name you one specific spot, and I'm sure Mom couldn't, I know Bill couldn't, that there was one specific spot out here. I mean, her fondest memory is the baseball field. I mean, because she loved baseball, she loved to play. Mine may be different. Bill's may be different. And I bet if you got
that stool on there, the bathroom's got a stool in there. Sit down.
I bet if you got how many survivors would still be from that era, they probably would name you 20 different locations.
But you would agree basically on the little area.
Yeah.
Street.
You'd say that your world, Mom,
Yeah.
when you first came out here, it was between Felice Street, Hebron Street, Market, and Alisal. That would be your world right here, right?
Jefferson.
Yeah, see, even Jefferson, she's cutting it down even smaller, saying
Who's Jefferson?
Jefferson's one street up.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Every day for us kids. Every day for us kids. I sit back and I think about that a lot because we were with no problems, no nothing. And the parents were the boss. Today I wonder who's the boss.
But you're still describing the same area. Alisal.
Same square area.
Over to Market Street.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were going to put a marker that had those streets on it, is there a particular place that might be good? I mean, the marker would have like the streets describing the area.
Where you're going to get the most population, the biggest amount of people is probably on Hebron and Alisal Street over there on the corner.
That's where it's going to be seen the most.
You can drive that perimeter afterwards.
Yeah.
Scope it out, and there may be something.
You're hearing a conversation, which I thought was important. Hear the conversation. Then we'll drive around and we'll see the streets that Bruce is talking about and that Gerry's talking about. Yes, Jefferson's one street over, and Hebron is what I told you it was. We can go back to those four corners over here on Hebron, and we can go over to Madera. And then you have to kind of make up your mind
Okay,
what fits what you're trying to accomplish.
that sounds good. That sounds good.
Because in the final analysis, it's going to be historical, but it may not be totally factual because everybody has a different perspective from the time frame of their life.
I don't think you could say this is the spot where it started. In other words, there's not something that's going to identify that one. I mean, most historical spots say, well, this is the rough area where it started. Here, it's going to be basically this square area. I'm sorry.
Quick question. Would Hebron Street and Alisal, the corner there, would that be like a main point that everybody kind of crisscrossed to get everywhere else?
Certainly was when I was a kid. I assume it probably was when you were a kid. Probably was when Mom was too. Yeah.
Because that might be.
Well, Del Monte was another nice street at one time.
That's
Well,
the
yeah,
best way to think about it.
That's a farther way out.
You'd go through
Yeah.
That was a 1940 era.
Yeah, the Del Monte was a little bit later. Yeah.
That was built up by the Okies
Yes,
too.
it was.
Yeah, but that's when they started migrating that way.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Garland is going to have to leave at a certain point, so I think it might be, and we really want him to film some of us out on some of these spots. What do you think?
There was one other point I wanted to that she had mentioned earlier that she could expound on a little bit, and it's not quite with the literary marker, but I think it's good if we could get it on tape. You had mentioned earlier that John Steinbeck made fun of you, made fun of the people here. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Why do you think John Steinbeck made fun of you?
Huh?
This is a major disagreement.
John Steinbeck ruined us.
Why do you believe that?
Why?
Why do you believe that?
Because he brought in so much celebrity that you didn't even end up being a celebrity. You made fun of us people all the time, making fun of the Okies and everything caused the grapes of wrath. We did come like the grapes of wrath because we were lucky to get here. We were very lucky. My dad said they closed up the border of California after we got here.
Yeah, but why do you think that John Steinbeck made fun of you?
The way he wrote in some of his books I read.
But isn't that basically the way you came out here?
What?
Isn't that the way you guys came out here, though?
The grapes of wrath.
Well, I know, so how do you believe he's making fun of you?
Because what else could he say?
Well, but that was the truth, though, right?
Well, why didn't he say we would come out here because we needed to be out here?
I think he did.
I have a suggestion. You endless on this. If Garland, I keep forgetting your first name.
Garland.
Would it be possible for you to be in my car so we could take one trip and I can drive you around, as opposed to you following me, and we could converse?
Yeah, that's what we.
It's an easier way to do it.
Sure.
Because now we've identified, let's just take a little ride.
That sounds
Well, I'm
wonderful.
going to tell you something. I said, man, I admired more than anything Mr. Sherwood. He did more for Salinas in those days than anything. Give us that land for Sherwood School, the land for the rodeo, and everything. He's from Maryland. And I remember my dad, he's a real tall man. He did a lot for Salinas, but he never got the gravy for it. I think he did a lot for Salinas. Sherwood did. And he was Sherwood Park and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And he never made fun of nobody either. He helped us. But he never got no praise for it. I've heard Pop say many times Mr. Sherwood's the one that should have got the praise for a lot of things.
As you can see, she's
He
very.
didn't ask for money, he just donated it.
As you can see, she's very sensitive to the fact that they did take a lot of grief and were made fun of a lot when they first came out here, and I'm sure you saw a lot of that too.
Oh, boy. My sister Tootie. You remember Tootie?
You remember Tootie?
What?
You remember her sister Tootie?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
She hid behind
Your sister Alisal had a birthday on my car.
Yeah.
You know what, my mother, his sister and I had the birthday the same day. And everything, we did a party together. And I always thought they liked her better because she's getting better presents.
So what about Tootie?
She hid behind the door and didn't want to go to school because she was going to wear the same dress again and again and again. Girls are more sensitive than boys for sure. We didn't care. We just wore whatever we wore. It didn't make any difference. Levi's a t-shirt, and if I had a windbreaker, I don't think it was called a windbreaker. It was just a jacket. So girls are more sensitive to it than the boys. When we were growing up, we participated. We competed with the Sherwood School. We competed with Lincoln School. We competed with Washington. However, we competed. Baseball, mostly baseball, and some football, just street games. I had some buddies. I grew up in the Alisal, further on, I keep pointing out there. And we were a good football team. We played in the street. We played tackle in the street.
So did we.
You lived on
So we came to town and we had a football game with...
Bill, you lived on Midway, huh?
Yeah. We had a football game with a parochial school. I can't remember whether it was Sacred Heart then or what it was, but it wasn't Palmer. But we came to town and we had a scrimmage, just kind of like a football game, and they killed us. They had a coach. They had a brother who was a coach. I put a bunch of Okie kids out there thinking we're pretty tough. Man, they threw it around us like we didn't know what we were doing.
Well, Bill, I've still got scars on every one of my knuckles from playing tackle football out in the middle of the street. So.
Well, that's where we grew up.
Yeah.
You know, he had the sweetest dad. I always dressed up, the last time, he was always dressed up pretty, really. And when my dad was sick, his dad would come over and bathe him, and he was really a good, he was a good son. But his dad was a very
girls have heard enough to take
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
I am.
It's been such a privilege to talk to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill. Yeah. Well, I love hearing them. Because everyone talks about all this story, there's something new that I've not heard. But yeah, I mean, those are the kind of things that we remember, growing up, and the things that stood out the most for us.
Yeah, talk about that. Right there.
Might be a good idea. Well,
It's like I remember
You got what you need, Garland?
Hang on a sec. Just give me a few more seconds. We'll be good.
No, she's looking editing a lot of videos, so he's looking for a few additional shots that he knows he wants to cut in later. Part of what we're doing in the library is doing also, in addition to his work that I'm doing, Garland does some work with screen therapy, so he's kind of scoping out different ways to do small.
It's interesting about this is because the sky being passed now.
But you know, I feel like an old woman cry that big grandson. I got married, I felt old.
How do you think it made me feel?
You're not just like me, I'm a great big grandson.
You'd be pretty proud of that.
I wasn't good. We just passing through to see what my pop had a 19-room house here. Half of it tore down. Good people were freezing this. They wondered how long we should stay.
we had gatherings here, and another family. We did a big gathering. A whole bunch of pictures of family. But we just gathered. There wasn't a restaurant to go to.
No.
Didn't have any money to do that anyway. That was
It was usually somebody's house.
But you know, there are so many of us, I couldn't keep track of them.
there were a bunch of.
Papa had 100 grandkids when he died. 100 grandkids.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes. 100 of them. Now, how many he's got now? I don't know how many.
Are we at the baseball diamond now?
I don't think so. This is Jefferson. We're going to Market Street.
Remember, I don't know where Market Street is, so.
It looks like we're having a thing here,
Looks
folks.
like it,
we have
yeah.
that thing.
Boy, it's kind of busy.
Holy moly. Holy moly.
They're going in to arrest somebody.
They're going to get somebody, aren't they? Okay, this is Market Street. Okay. This is Market Street.
So where was the baseball diamond?
We've been right there.
On that empty lot
Yeah,
right
right
there?
there. Yeah.
Right there in the corner.
It's got to be right here or across the street. You remember she said there's still nothing over there? Well,
That's probably
it would
it.
have been right there.
That's probably it.
This used to be a drugstore. Jeff's drugstore. He was the neatest guy, and his wife was the prettiest woman, and darned if they didn't get a divorce somewhere along the line. It's funny how things happen.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a Boy Scout, we used to meet over here, so okay, now we're going to go over to Hebron. And I'm going to bring you back and I'm going to show you why it's kind of complicated. The shanty town that you speak of, Lori, is down. Running into, I think it's Cesar Chavez community, something or another. But you can see why it's so difficult to pin something down.
Mm-hmm.
Part of Carter Lake, if you looked at that map I gave you, But you don't know that right now, but
You don't want to bring it out.
Does this area flood?
yeah, it does.
So the Shannontown area would flood?
Yeah, I think it's flooded out there. When I was a kid, I watched somebody pulled out, drown, because they would go out and wade in one of the irrigation ditches. First time I ever saw somebody lying awake in a home. And I was just a kid, an 8-year-old kid, but I remember
So do you feel pretty sure that this is the area that she means down in this depression?
yeah, I do. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's not so much right here. You have to get to Market Street and get a sense for something. It's that area. I mean, that's as close as I can come. It's
Okay. This would be a nice place for a marker. It's a public area. People come here to see the story.
yeah, you could do that.
Right? Even if the idea is to use the area, like maybe right here, to use the area where some of the shanty houses were, that might be an interesting.
Let's continue with that. Before you make a determination, let's continue down here a little further. Because when I talked about Whiskey Hill, in the 536 Club, I can't remember whether it was on Market or Alisal, because time does dim the memory. Otis had that hardware store, or whatever they had. Okay, now, when we talk about Whiskey Hill, you can see we're going to go down a little hill. I'm just going to drive over just for a second and see what else you can see from this vantage point.
Okay.
You're speaking of the court houses, and yes, it was a term that I'd forgotten about, but people used it.
Yeah, it goes all the way down there, and so that's now parking for the place, for the apartment building.
So little ones with a space around them. Those things. And that looks like it
She was
could
talking
easily
about-
be from the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this was. Just remember it.
I got the impression there were.
And I'm sure there are plenty of bars. I don't know how many because I don't have any sense for how many. All I can tell you is that's where the fights all began.
Everything I've been able to learn about the Alisal tells me a lot of things, but that it's kind of always been a little bit of a rough and tumble
It
place
has been a rough and tumble place
since the beginning.
since the beginning. Tough guys, big guys loading those lettuce carts.
Mm-hmm.
Those lettuce cars, those crates, those 70 to 80 pounds. You had to be tough and strong to push those around full of ice.
And would there be, do you think, like maybe a motivation for the fights, a lot of the frustration with the job and the conditions and the work and
Personalities haven't changed a whole lot. When you're big and young and you're strong and you're not real smart, then it's a chance for you to get tough when you can get tough, as opposed to being a politician. When you're small, then you become a politician early on in life.
got it.
Okay, car flats. I'll give you an example of that. I grew up going to Alisal school, had a bike, and two guys, Delmer Jessica and Bobby Patterson, met me at the drinking fountain and said, in essence, if I don't get in a fight with them, they're going to steal my bike. And I gave them my bike. I said, look, you guys, there isn't any chance I can't do that with one of you, let alone two of you. And we became the best friends because I wasn't a fighter. They were.
You used your head, it sounds like.
It happens that way. All of this area I'm speaking of, folks, this is Car Flat. That's Car Flat. 1935 map, you'll see a whole bunch of sloughs. Water, water seeks its level and it's going to go downhill.
Yeah. Some of this was supposed to have been.
Interesting as we look around, so many places are really old, aren't
Look
they?
at that
Yeah.
one.
Look
It's
at
very
these.
small, and that must have been re-sided. But I saw one that was board and bat back behind it, and that might have been a.
Yeah, these still look like
They sure do, don't they? They sure
These
look
must
like
be
little
courthouses.
courts.
See, there's a court right in
Yeah.
the middle. I can totally see why you call them that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nice way to live for a community, though, to have a little courtyard in the middle. See that board and back shack? It's kind of pinkish back there.
Interesting, isn't it? This is the older part. To repeat myself.
That's okay. You can do it again for the camera.
Well, this is the area that Bruce and Sky were talking about. You pretty well have seen Little Oklahoma.
These look like some more houses.
Mhm.
Maybe a little. They've been updated. It looks
Mhm.
like, but.
stucco.
Mm-hmm.
This is amazing that you see things that look like they've been there for so long.
Well, that area we just came out of, I haven't been over there in years, as I mentioned. And that's, look at them.
Yeah.
Soak them in kerosene
Oh,
and light them, of course. Yeah. Oh, it seems like we did it forever. Probably we did it once or twice, but in your mind's eye,
Yeah.
you did them forever.
right,
But we played along this slough.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Well, we did it.
I remember sparklers. I didn't ever do.
You never lit up the shrubbery?
No.
I even looked the other day to see if there were any foxtails along there because that's the way I remember them.
And were there?
I didn't see any.
Oh. That's kind of strange.
You said something interesting earlier, which was that you guys weren't poor till the Depression hit.
Yeah.
Right, so-
Oh, my sister wrote a lovely story about how they grew up in Texas. They put the prairie on fire. My dad had to come over with the neighbors to put it out. The church almost burned down, but it was half dirt, so it didn't catch on fire. And on and on and on and on.
Was it a big shock when the Depression hit and a big change?
Of course, I wasn't born till I got here.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother and dad never talked about how poor we were. We lived, my dad grew cotton, cattle. And one of the stories that my sister wrote was when they came to pick cotton, all my dad did was, she called the Negroes. The Negroes would check their guns in, and my dad would keep them until the cotton was picked and gone, and they'd get their guns back, and they'd be on down the road. That was life. And so,
It was a bit more stark back then, you could say.
and we're going back to Hebron again now.
Did I hear somewhere that, let's see, somebody kept a diary?
My sister wrote a journal
A journal.
about our trip out here and including the life that we lived in Texas. And it was, I say it's a journal, it's a 4 or 5 page. When we get back to the office, I'll just give you a copy of it. Okay, it'll give you, it's the way she wrote it. She didn't go to high school. I've never changed a word. Just exactly the way she wrote it. I'll give you a copy of it.
That would
Because
be
it depicts our life, but the life of so many people at that time,
It would be wonderful to get him on camera reading from that, wouldn't it, Carl?
Mm-hmm.
People, I sent it to that fellow Kim Burns, the gal who interviewed me, because I just said, but it wasn't what they were looking for. They were looking for somebody in the Dust Bowl era.
Yeah, I know
The
they were
Dust Bowl
very
was 35,
specific.
36, and I said, yeah, but
Well, I was just wondering if we.
it's just a 4 or 5 page. Well, here we are, we're back on East Street.
Oh, okay, so, all right, so we just did a box around
Yeah.
those streets that you talked about.
That's what we did.
That was extremely helpful.